Hi, I'm Mark Coleman. My presentation is A Party on Every Page, covering new pop at Star Hits magazine from 1983 to 1985. The saga begins on an October evening in 1983 when David Frick contacted me about applying for a job at a music magazine startup. I knew David's byline from Rolling Stone and Musician, but we had never met. Smash Hits at that time was the best-selling music publication in the UK, but it was almost impossible to obtain in the States, hence the need for an American edition. However, due to a legal conflict, the American Smash Hits got stuck with the gauche title Star Hits. In the early 80s, I monitored the UK scene by reading the weekly New Musical Express. I'd never heard of Smash Hits until David Frick phoned me. In those days, most American journalists were hostile to English groups. When I wrote about New Order and Joy Division in the Village Voice earlier in 1983, most writers of my circle were incredulous. How can you stand that shit, they asked me. As it turned out, I was familiar with the musicians covered in Smash Hits, and thanks to MTV's explosive growth during the preceding 2 years, so were millions of young Americans. The New Romantic movement came and went on U.S. soil during 1981, but standard bearers such as Spandau Ballet and Duran had soldiered on back in England, and their videos, especially Duran's lavish travelogue clips, had become MTV staples, which meant teenagers across the United States were hearing more new music than the big city tastemakers like me ever imagined. Star Hits headquarters was located in a high-rise office building near the Bloomingdale's department store on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I arrived on time for my interview and was escorted into the compact editorial bullpen. I took in the sweeping uptown view through the picture windows and met the co-editors. They couldn't have been more different. David Frick was imposingly tall, well over 6 feet and slender, sporting shoulder-length hair and blue jeans. If you've seen David on TV, interviewed recently, he looked the same then. He had a quiet demeanor, yet displayed quick, lively eyes behind light-sensitive wire-rimmed glasses. Neil Tennant, on temporary loan from Smash Hits' London office, registered as the more outgoing of the two. He succinctly described the magazine's mission while flashing the occasional sparkling glance of amusement or a sardonic raised eyebrow. Impressed by both men, I decided minutes into the interview that I would do just about anything to get hired. Somehow I answered their questions without revealing my ignorance of the magazine itself. Or maybe they knew. Still, they praised my test assignment and gave me a few copies of Smash Hits to take home. Reading the magazine for the first time back downtown in my 9th Avenue cubbyhole, I lost my shit. Smash Hits really was a teen mag with screaming girls and everything. However, when I read Neil Tennant's cover story on Kajagoogoo in the May 26, 1983 issue, I saw the light. The story was, in the breathless parlance of the time, brilliant, witty, sharp, and observant. I was a mildly fierce critic of the group myself, Neil wrote about Kajagoogoo, until it began to dawn on me that if they were criticized so widely and so frequently, they must be doing something right. Instead of gushing or condescending or pandering, Neil and Smash Hits gave young readers a sense of what the pop star subjects were like as people, plus a peek behind the Wizard of Oz music-biz curtain. At first, I was hired as a freelance writer-editor, though freelance meant Neil or David called me almost daily. Are you busy? No. Why don't you come up and give us a hand? I was between day jobs at that point, scraping by on occasional work from the Village Voice and random assignments like profiling Lionel Richie for current biography. New pop and Star Hits turned out to be a godsend for me, professionally and personally. Star Hits was owned and operated by the late English publisher Felix Dennis. He licensed the title and the editorial concept from the British company EMAP. Back in the UK, Felix Dennis had made his name during the 70s with magazines targeting consumers of motorcycles, home electronics, and such. Star Hits was his first American venture. A decade later, he launched the men's magazine Maxim, and then Blender, a nominally more mature and certainly more macho music title than Star Hits. Eventually, I discovered that David Frick recruited David Keeps and myself for Star Hits in the fall of 1983 because we'd both written for New York Rocker. David Keeps was probably the only journalist in New York City who was even aware of smash hits, and he not only read it, he totally got it. New pop was second nature to Keeps. For me, it took a few minutes to get up to speed. Neil Tennant and art director Kimberly Leston came over from Smash Hits' London office to assist in the launch. Kimberly Leston, a few years later, switched from graphic design to writing with great success, and then she tragically passed away in 1994. Kimberly, Neil, and Neil were both super smart, devastatingly funny, and to me, inspiring and influential people. In late 1983, their excitement about being in New York City was contagious. We'd all go out after work and have a blast. It was a magical time, and working on a bold new magazine just added to the buzz. I came on full-time at Star Hits in January of '84, and not long after that, Neil and Kimberly returned to London. I got bumped up to deputy editor, the #2 editorial spot behind David Keeps, when David Frick left in late spring of 1984. In retrospect, the most important, innovative, and influential aspect of Star Hits was the look of the magazine. Not just the photographs, but the graphic design too, laboriously done by hand in those pre-digital days. Learning to visualize stories was the best thing I learned at Star Hits, something I took with me to future editor jobs. Quick look at a couple of the covers. There's John Taylor and Roger Taylor, Prince and Wham in the corner. And here's a really stunning one of the Go-Go's. Michael Jackson up in the corner. That gives a good sense, I think, of the mix of Star Hits. It wasn't just new pop, where new pop included more than just British invasion bands. I want to say a couple words about Neil Tennant, who we all know from the Pet Shop Boys. At that time, Neil was an active musician himself, though he kept a lid on discussing these aspirations at his day job. Neil seemed to maintain a complex relationship with the idea of stardom. He specialized in a nuanced version of mockery that included affection as well as contempt for the target. Humor informed Neil's stinging critique of rock and roll cliches, as opposed to the pretentious gravity of many serious rock critics on either side of the Atlantic. Neil would burst into pomposity, skewering irony, or sarcasm at the slightest provocation. Most delicious was his impersonation of a faux populist English rock star on stage. Hello, New York! 1984 rolled in with a flourish. Star Hits was a success right out of the gate. The mail started arriving in sacks. We piled them like sandbags near the office front door. The deluge began after the first issue had been out for about a week. Hundreds of letters to the editor, and eventually thousands of entries for the Meet Duran contest. The brightly colored envelopes came inscribed with the names of correspondents' favorite bands, rendered in ornate calligraphy. You couldn't comprehend the lasting impact of punk rock until you saw Sid Vicious Lives scrawled on Garfield stationery. We soon realized that readers imagined Star Hits as part of a glamorous, exotic pop star firmament, when in reality the magazine was produced by a small colony of worker ants confined in a sterile high-rise office tower. The remarkable thing to me now is the tiny size of the staff, maybe a total of 10 people doing art, editorial, and business, plus a handful of freelance writers. The second and third issues continued to fly off newsstands at the same astronomical rate as the debut. A touch of perspective here, 10 years later, when I was a senior editor at Rolling Stone, those same non-subscription sales figures, roughly 300,000 copies, were only rarely reached and celebrated as a major coup. So 300,000 copies sold off the newsstand outside of subscriptions. While in theory I'm still willing to attribute the smashing early triumph of Star Hits to stellar editorial content, in practice the collateral benefit from MTV is undeniable. And our commercials on MTV help too, despite or because of the embarrassing tagline. You can't sing along if you don't know the words, and if you don't know the words, you can't sing along. Little kids kind of reciting that. Singing along refers to the song lyrics that ran in each issue. Music publishers provided us with printed official lyrics that invariably were wrong, often comically. So one of my tasks was checking the printed lyrics against the actual recording with headphones and Walkman, since music also blared all day on our office stereo. The Meet Duran contest was one of several promotions the magazine ran. My favorite was the Star Hits Lookalike Contest. Dress up as your favorite member of Duran, Boy George, Madonna, or Cyndi Lauper. It proved irresistible to many readers. The in-house ads soliciting contest entries featured yours truly, posed in, before, and after shots. Styled by David Keeps and photographer Stephanie Chernikowski, I appeared twice in the full-page ad. First as the super nerd character Nervous Norbert. Whoops, that's Billy Idol, okay. Nervous Norbert. And then me as Billy Idol. As far as I was concerned, I won the contest. I don't remember who officially won. Anyway, that was the only time I appeared in the pages of the magazine. The top 40 stayed strong during 1984, as Michelangelo Matos has documented in his upcoming book. But sales of Star Hits flagged sometime during late spring or early summer of 1984. Not fatally, but enough to cause grave concern among Felix Dennis and his business partners. And Felix didn't hesitate to make his concern felt among the editorial staff. Yet despite the falling sales, creatively Star Hits continued to flourish well into 1985. Since Star Hits readers were predominantly teenage girls, it makes sense that two dynamic young women helped to redefine and refine the magazine's vision during the months following its successful launch. From the moment Alicia Kashishian became art director in 1984, the already spectacular pages erupted in a blinding, brilliant wash of full-spectrum colors and floating typefaces. Alicia brought a new radiance to the magazine, reflecting and echoing the energy in the music. Around the same time that Keeps replaced David Frick as the editor-in-chief in mid-1984, a college student named Suzanne Cologne segued from intern to associate editor. I won't say effortlessly segued, because that would belie how hard Suzanne worked. Most important, she was a natural writer, and since she was A, only a few years older than our readers, and B, counted ardent music fandom in her resume, Suzanne knew exactly where our readers were coming from. Over time, her presence endowed Star Hits with a voice of its own, slightly distinct from the English-accented smash hits. Her background as a fangirl and her quick-study intelligence brought grounding, authenticity, to a breathlessly trendy magazine. By spring of 1985, the pop landscape was shifting. Duran went on hiatus, Boy George flaked out, and groups such as Tears for Fears, though massively popular, lacked the star power, the pizzazz, required to sell magazines. We made space for all manner of oddball pop, punk, rock, hip-hop, and funk in the magazine's pages, but the cover became the exclusive dominion of Duran, Billy Idol, Madonna, and Wham! My proudest moment at Star Hits, without question, was the Nick Rhodes cover story in the November 1985 issue. We were starved, desperate for a fresh angle on Duran that summer. And like all Duranis, I knew that keyboardist Nick was both an Andy Warhol devotee and a budding art collector. At that time, there was an art boom in the East Village and Lower East Side, with dozens of galleries featuring work by locally based artists. So my brainstorm, probably the brightest idea I had at Star Hits, resulted in a feature called the Nick Rhodes Art Attack. Our plan was to escort Nick to one of these storefront galleries, pose him in front of the paintings, turn on the tape recorder, and let the pop star play art prognosticator. And probably it all came off without a hitch. I chose the Semaphore East Gallery on Avenue B and 10th Street. The current show was an exhibit called Semaphoria, displaying a representative sample of neighborhood talent. Mike Bidlow, Nancy Dwyer, Seng Kwong Shi, Ellen Birkenblit, and Walter Robinson. Gallery director Barry Blunderman welcomed the attention and went well out of his way to accommodate us. Intrepid photographer Andy Freeberg and I arrived by foot on a pleasant summer afternoon. My memory conjures up a dramatic image of Nick Rhodes rolling up much later in a stretched limo. Most likely it was just a full-service car service sedan. Nick appeared to enjoy himself, holding forth on the artwork and posing for the camera. Andy's photos captured Nick's playfulness in the vivid canvases. I just let the tape roll. Back at the office, I cut and pasted the rambling results into an oral history-style monologue for the article. I'll spare you my imitation of Nick's accent here. Even in works I don't like, I can pick things out. Maybe something's attractive to look at, but I won't like the subject matter. Or maybe I like the subject matter and it'll seem a shame that it isn't more attractive. Then I might love something because it's so unattractive. Even if I don't like certain works of art, they still give me ideas. It's always interesting. In fact, Nick insisted we shoot him in front of the painting Subway Vandal by former graffiti artist Lady Pink, which he disliked and pronounced quite bizarre, actually. Besides looking great, Art Attack also achieved the goal of being different than the dozens of other articles we'd run on Duran. Looking back, this story represents not only my peak at Star Hits, but nothing less than the Underground Go's mainstream apotheosis in my early years in New York City. And by 1985, the writing was on the wall at Star Hits. The next wave from England was led by Depeche Mode and The Cure, both of whom we loved in the office but were too edgy for our publishers. This was when Felix Dennis pushed the magazine towards covering pretty boy TV stars, who all seemed to be named Corey and who I regarded with lofty contempt. Whether I got shoved and pushed in early 1986 hardly matters now. It was a great ride. And there we are. A party on every page was a slogan we put on one of the t-shirts. I can't claim authorship for that. Anyway, thanks a lot.